What if the car as we know it never existed? In 2019, the world consumed about 35.9 billion barrels of oil, a staggering figure that underscores petroleum's impact on modern life. Now, imagine an alternate 1900-era Manhattan. No gas pumps, only stables and electric tram stops lining every avenue. How might the absence of petroleum have shaped our world? In this video, we'll dive into 4 key areas: transportation, manufacturing, city planning, and sustainability, to uncover the ripple effects of a petroleum-free history. Get ready to explore a world you've likely never imagined, where the course of progress took a dramatically different path. In a world without petroleum, the sound of car engines would never have filled the streets. Instead of highways weaving across continents, you'd see cities crisscrossed by rails for electric trams, flanked by cobbled roads meant for horse-drawn carriages. Imagine New York or London in the early 1900s, but frozen in that time. No traffic jams filled with cars, just an intricate network of public transport powered by electricity or steam engines. Petroleum became the backbone of transportation because it was accessible, energy-dense, and adaptable, fueling a wave of inventions that shaped the modern world. Gasoline and diesel turned the internal combustion engine into a star player. Cars, buses, trucks, airplanes all relied on it to make speed and convenience possible. Without it, societies would have had to lean on much older methods or push alternative technologies forward far earlier than they did. Let's start right on the ground. Horse-drawn carriages would have continued to dominate personal travel for longer than they did in our timeline. Modern Amish communities, for example, provide a glimpse into what mainstream transport could have looked like in a petroleum-free world. However, horses came with huge limitations. They required extensive resources to feed and maintain, and cities with large numbers of them faced sanitation issues from the sheer volume of waste. The transition to mechanical alternatives became critical for urban expansion, so without oil, early steam-powered vehicles and electric transport systems likely would have filled this gap much faster. Electric trams, already operational in major cities by the late 19th century, likely would have become the dominant urban network. These vehicles connected central hubs to surrounding neighborhoods, and without petroleum, cities might have expanded these systems significantly. Instead of car-centric infrastructure, urban planners may have prioritized tram systems with lines spidering out from densely packed city centers. Imagine a city like Victorian-era London evolving with electric trolleys every few blocks, streets alive with the hum of overhead wires and the sharp clang of tram bells. Steam-powered vehicles, while innovative for their time, were large, slow to start, and prone to mechanical issues. Without petroleum, long-distance transport would have remained tied to coal-fired steamships. Cross-ocean voyages would still take weeks, making global trade slower and far more expensive. Nations would have connected far less efficiently, and international goods might have been rare luxuries rather than everyday commodities. Speaking of trains, rail networks would have become even more vital. Steam trains already played an enormous role in the Industrial Revolution, and without cars or long-haul trucks to compete with, rail might have dominated both local and interstate transport much longer. Picture sprawling train systems connecting regions and continents, with freight trains carrying goods across vast areas and passenger trains offering plush, leisurely travel. Without petroleum, transportation would have revolved around localized, dense societies driven by communal systems rather than individual vehicles. Progress may have been slower in some ways, but tighter communities and cleaner cities might have been part of the trade-off. If petroleum had never been discovered, the conveniences of modern plastics would be missing from our world. Plastics have become part of nearly every corner of daily life, from food packaging to life-saving medical equipment. Without them, manufacturing would look nothing like it does today, and the materials we rely on would tell a very different story. The absence of plastics would force innovation in directions we can only imagine, shaped by glass, metal, wood, and natural fibers instead of synthetic polymers. Glass, for example, would have remained essential, especially for containers, tools, and scientific needs. Before the plastic revolution, glass was already being used for everything from bottles to medical vials. Its durability and chemically neutral properties made it a natural choice for sterilization and longevity. Without plastic, glass would likely dominate food storage, medical tools, and packaging, requiring widespread reuse and sterilization. Imagine syringes made of sterilizable glass instead of today's disposable plastic variants, or glass jars replacing single-use plastic bags. While glass offers visual cleanliness and longevity, it comes with the trade-off of being heavier and more fragile. Metals, especially steel, copper, and aluminium, would have played an even greater role in large-scale production. These materials were already essential for tools, construction, and machinery, but in a world without plastics, their use would extend further. Kitchenware, appliances, and even consumer goods like radios would rely heavily on metals for both their casings and internal structures. Without lightweight plastic, devices would feel heavier and more industrial. Advances in metal alloys would have led to stronger, lighter materials tailored for broader applications. However, this reliance on metals would increase mining and resource extraction, leading to significant environmental impacts, including habitat disruption and pollution. Wood, a cornerstone material before plastics, would remain central to industries like furniture, construction, and even transportation. Without plastic to replace it, wood might have been adapted for durable packaging or even body casings for electronics. Picture a world in which wooden cases for typewriters or radios evolved to house modern electronics, creating a retro-futuristic aesthetic. Advances in woodworking might focus on making wood more resistant to wear and decay. However, this expanded use of wood would put immense pressure on forests, making sustainable forestry practices essential. Natural fibers like cotton, wool, and silk would dominate textiles, with producers focusing on increasing their durability and performance. Clothing and upholstery would depend upon these fibers, but heavy reliance on farming them could strain resources, leading to challenges like soil degradation and water overuse. Daily life in this world would feel heavier and more deliberate. Packaging would rely on glass bottles or paper wrappings, requiring reuse and recycling as a necessity. Imagine World War II-era innovations, like parachutes made of heavier canvas or silk instead of lightweight plastic materials, highlighting the challenges of adapting to such limitations. This world would prioritize durability and craftsmanship, with products built to last and designed for repair rather than replacement. Imagine a world where cities never expanded outward into sprawling suburbs, where freeways and endless rows of single-family homes surrounded by cars simply didn't exist. The reason for that difference lies in transportation, more specifically, petroleum-powered vehicles. The rise of car culture shaped urban planning in ways that profoundly altered how we live and move. Without oil, urban development would have followed a different path, one with denser, walkable cities and reliance on public transportation like trams and trains instead of personal vehicles. Petroleum became essential for fueling cars and buses, which in turn allowed cities to expand horizontally. Suburbs grew around this model, connected by highways, giving people the ability to live miles away from their workplaces. Without oil as the energy resource that powered this mobility revolution, planners would have faced a starkly different challenge, enabling movement within and between metropolitan areas entirely without reliance on the internal combustion engine. In this petroleum-free scenario, cities would have adapted to alternatives such as foot traffic, horse-drawn transportation, railways, or electric tram systems. A petroleum-free reality makes auto-centric development unsustainable, keeping early city designs more compact and centralized. Horse-drawn carriages, once the dominant method of urban transportation, would have persisted alongside mechanically powered trams and steam-based alternatives. City streets would still accommodate horses and stables, but this reliance would have been accompanied by sanitation reforms, as seen in the 19th century, to manage waste and maintain public health. This would have added complexity to urban infrastructure, requiring space for stables and animal care while also addressing the challenges of maintaining clean and livable environments. Electric tram systems, on the other hand, had begun to replace carriages even before the internal combustion engine's rise. Early examples of these systems, efficient and quiet, would have expanded further, faster. In urban planning, tram lines would have been integral to city design, dictating where housing, marketplaces, and community centers were built based on their reach. Cities would have resembled networks of tightly connected hubs, with tram stops as the lifelines between them. Vienna, for example, offers a real-world glimpse of this model, where tram lines shaped dense, walkable neighborhoods that remain highly functional even today. Without private motor vehicles, suburban sprawl may never have reached its current scale. Long commutes from the outer stretches of sprawling cities would have been impractical using slower or less flexible means of transport like horse carriages or steam vehicles. Instead, urban growth would have remained close to central hubs, homes, businesses, and services packed into walkable distances around efficient public transit lines. Daily life in such a world would look remarkably local. People might work, shop, and socialize, all within a smaller radius, fostering a tighter sense of community but limiting certain conveniences and expansions. The lack of highways would also have reshaped intercity travel and freight. Railroads, powered by coal and steam, would have dominated, but intercity shipping would have been slower and costlier than today's highway-dependent systems. Electrification of rail systems might have been prioritized earlier, resulting in more efficient networks, though not necessarily high-speed rail. Energy infrastructure would have evolved to support these transportation needs. Coal and hydroelectric power would likely have taken precedence, fueling tram and train networks while tying city development closely to nearby rivers or coal-rich regions. These resources, already pivotal during the Industrial Revolution, would have remained central to powering alternative transport systems. To visualize these variations in urban design, we can look to cities like Paris, which developed around tram lines and compact neighborhoods. Such cities highlighted how dense, walkable urban areas can thrive without reliance on cars. While this alternate reality might lack suburban sprawl, it would also bring its own challenges, such as balancing energy demands and managing resource sustainability. However, it would also foster quieter, slower-paced communities that prioritize human connection over machine-driven mobility. A petroleum-free world would have redefined life as we know it. Localized economies and slower technological diffusion might have fostered stronger community ties, but limited global connectivity. Resource bottlenecks would have driven innovation, with natural materials like wood, glass, and metal taking center stage. Proven oil reserves have more than doubled since 1980, making it clear that waiting for them to run out won't solve climate change. As experts emphasize, to prevent the absolute worst effects of climate change, oil and gas reserves must stay in the ground. Which alternative technology seems most plausible to you? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Alt History Zone. Remember, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. Stay tuned.